Well, the word cockpit is now being banned by the world's largest pilot union because they say, well, you know what? This is meeting their worldwide UN-type woke stuff, literally UN stuff. This is the most pathetic thing in the world. They say that, by the way, cockpit is banned because it's offensive. I don't know how. That refers to literally a circular pit from 16th century England, a circular pit surrounded by a barrier that kept gamecocks from escaping, with spectators who viewed the bloody sport as entertainment, Wall Street Journal columnist wrote in 2019. The confined space, the noise, the blood, and the fetid air evidently reminded people of original cockpits. Okay. They also are saying men and man should be avoided. Manpower, people power, it should be swapped out for human power and people power. I mean, this is insane. Flight deck instead of cockpit. Flight deck, what is that? And don't use mother and father. It could alienate people. So use husband, wife, boyfriend. Don't use girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. I couldn't talk. I literally couldn't talk. There's so many words in here. I could not talk. And wow. All right. So a couple questions I have for you. Even Elon Musk chimed in on this, saying this is mess up. Do you agree that masculine terms are offensive with these unions and these DEI people? Or do you think these terms may confuse people and make us less safe? And what other words or titles have you seen renamed so as not to offend anybody, like manhole? Can't say manhole. It's a person hole, which sounds inappropriate, to say the least. Jim in Mesquite, welcome to WBAP. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Chris, listen, you made a mistake earlier. You can't say mail carrier. It should be person carrier or human carrier.
Wait a minute, though. Wait. A mail carrier? Well, wait a minute. If I'm a person carrier, I'm carrying people.
So, but if you say mail carrier, you're carrying males, but not females. That's sexist.
Well, yes, but, well, it depends. If you are a male, M-A-L-E carrier, you are carrying men. And that, yep. But what if you do carry men for a living? Somebody's got to carry the men.
Yeah, but they have to. You can't discriminate. You must carry men and women.
What if you only carry men?
Well, you got to say both. You just can't. That would be discriminatory.
That's right.
That would be evil.
That's right. I agree.
Chris, listen, they're deplorables. They got to go. We've had enough of this stuff, and we need to push back and push back hard. Just tell them, y'all need to take a hike and get off the planet or get out of this country if you can't act like civilized human beings.
Here's what I do, and you don't ever do anything to offend anybody. Truthfully, you don't want to do that. You just be truthful. And like if somebody is a man, I'm not going to call him a her, and I'm not going to be rude about it. I'm just going to say, well, he's talking. I'm sorry. I don't address people that are men as women. I'm not comfortable with that. That's all. So I think we need to just not play the game, but don't be a jerk about it. If you're a jerk about it, you come across as a jerk, and you don't help anybody. You got to be nice about it. But I refuse to change, and that's all. I gently will refuse to change. And, I mean, what do you do? You throw me off a plane? Are you going to throw me off the plane because I call it the cockpit? Are you going to throw me off the plane because I call you the stewardess? Are you going to throw me off the plane because I call you a man when you're a woman in a dress? Or a man in a dress? I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, you going to throw me off the plane? This is Captain speaking. We got to everybody buckle in. We're going to land here in the middle of nowhere to drop off this guy and get him arrested by the feds because he refused to say flight deck instead of cockpit. And everybody's like, oh, man, come on. Oh, you can't say, oh, man. Person, come on. Sally and McKinney, what do you got? You're on BAP.
I feel like none of these terms are masculine. I feel like they're part of an industry that's been around for many years, and people just need to get over themselves. Secondly, I also feel that people...
Wait. Before your second point, are you saying that people need to get over it because men are not dominating anymore, therefore they need to call it something neutral?
I don't think that anybody's dominating here. I think that it's normal to call it a cockpit. It's normal to call it a stewardess or a flight attendant, whatever floats your boat.
Right.
But it's ridiculous. Nobody needs to get their feathers ruffled over this.
So, I mean, what does it tell you, though, in the world's largest pilot unions pulling this crap. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was in that union, I would just ignore all this.
Yeah, I would too. I would also take a look and see, are the leadership of that union more afraid of what the minority voice is saying rather than listening to the majority?
I think they are afraid of that because the minority is a vocal minority, and they beat you down, shout you out, put you on social media and blow it up and try to get other people to cancel you, what have you. And I would not be surprised if, I would be willing to bet you between 60 and 80% of the people that are in this union are not going to do this. I would hope not.
I agree.
I would hope not.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't.
All right, Sally, I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Thank you. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Let's see, what other phrases and words do we have here to pull up that are supposedly banned now, that aren't gender inclusive or not sensitive to racial issues that people might be offended by for something that's really not a racial problem at all. They're making us think like that. You know that? They're making us think there's something wrong with somebody if they're not playing the stupid game. You cannot memorize this. This is like learning a new language. This is like hieroglyphics. First-class citizen can't say that. You got to say, you got to say type, object. I don't even know what that means. Mob programming, can't say that anymore. These are some terms for software development. Can't say that. Got to say whole team swarming instead of mob programming. Red team, white team, yellow team, red atomic team, not okay. Offensive. Using colors based as racist tropes. Who's red? Oh, I guess you'd say Native American people? Come on. White, red, yellow. Okay, red atomic. How would that be offensive to? Somebody who's Native American that lives by a nuclear plant? I mean, what is this crap? What else here? You can't say sanity check. You got to say quick check, confidence check. Mom test or girlfriend test. Male or female connectors and fasteners. Have to put connector and receptacle. Oh, could you pass the connector? I need to plug it into this receptacle. Reminds me of Kermit the Frog. Remember when the Muppets took Manhattan? That movie Muppets Take Manhattan, and Kermit gets hit on the head, and he forgets who he is, and he's an executive in a marketing firm. He goes, I am in marketing. He talks like that instead of talking like he normally does. Yes, I am in marketing. Little things you remember from movies years ago. I would like you to pass me the male connector. I would like you to pass me the connector and the receptacle. Man in the middle, can't say it. Michael Jackson's song, we got to bleep that out. He is not starting with the man in the mirror. He is starting with the person in the middle. I'm starting with the person in the middle. Right? If you want to make a difference, make a change, just look at yourself and then whatever. All right, how about instead of man in the middle, machine in the middle? How would that work? Or monster in the middle? Whoa! Unless you're referring to Joe Biden's illegals. If there's three of them and you're like, which one did it to you? And they're like, oh, it's the monster in the middle. Would that be okay? Can I refer to the illegals that Joe Biden's letting in that are arrested for sexually assaulting our children as monsters in the middle? Brown bags. No, you cannot say brown bags. You must say lunch and learn. Or tech talks. Woo! Cakewalk? Nope, it's not a cakewalk. Takes the cake. Can't say it. Why? Cakewalk was a pre-Civil War dance. A dance performed by enslaved people. What the bleep? How do these people have this much time? Let me see here. Let me Google what it means to do this. Let me see. Is there anything offensive to this word? Oh, is there anything? You got to hire people, and they do in this DEI industry. You pay people like obscene amounts of money to do stupid things that are like ridiculous and make everybody hate each other, right? And question each other and not get along. Wild, wild, wild. 800-288-WBAP is our number. Also coming up next, speaking of people that are way, way off the reservation, can I say that anymore? I don't know. You can't say lower the bar, by the way. Nope. Got to say simplified or inclusive. Inclusive. All right. But also coming up next, this is on the same logic, the same types of people. a UC Berkeley firebomb suspect. Wait till you hear where he lives, what the value of the home he's living in is, and what his education levels is. He's been arrested for firebombing the UC Berkeley campus. As you saw some of that stuff go down in the past week, wait till you hear about this guy, who he is. And we'll talk about what would you do if it was your son. What would you think if this was your son? All right, that's next on the Chris Crock Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Having a great Friday night with you already, my friends. Okay. This is quite a story I wanted to talk about. It's crazy. You know all these radical people that are doing horrible things on our campuses and worse? Who are these people? Where are they from? Well, here's one of them. And this is a very serious one. This has got the FBI did a raid on his house. That's how serious this guy's is. Ready? The FBI is investigating him. He's being charged federally. They're also the Alameda County, district attorney's office. Prosecutors are going to prosecute him locally. And the police arrested him, cuffed and stuffed him, and so much more. Listen to this. He is one of the UC Berkeley firebomb suspects. I don't know if you caught that this past week they firebombed and literally torched. They firebombed a cop car. They threw Molotov cocktails at and burned out a cop car. They also threw firebombs and lit ablaze some of the buildings on the campus on purpose. Okay, so he's 34 years old. Because don't you want to know who these people are? We have an in-depth. He's 34 years old. He is a Northwestern University Doctorate of African American Studies. He's a white guy, by the way. So he is a white, radicalized. It's crazy. Okay, wait till you hear all this. He firebombed the feds, the cops, and Cal Fire. All three different authorities allege he firebombed a Berkeley campus police car and carried out 3 other arson incidents, 3 other ones, on university grounds June 1st, as well as last Thursday and Sunday. So this is a 2 to 3 week pattern he did of burning buildings down in cop cars. The FBI raided his home. In his 2018 academic journal, it states he considers himself a scholar, activist, and aspiring professor. Mom, he has no social media presence, but mom tweeted out Casey got his PhD onto job applications. That's 2 years ago. Another bio from 2019 describes him as an abolitionist. What the heck does that mean? Living and working in Chicago. There you go, my hometown birthplace. In other online articles, he's described as by the United States as a god-awful fascist. On another online article that he wrote, he's described the U.S., the United States, as a god-awful fascist hellhole where social injustices are concealed under the blinders of white supremacist American reason. So this guy this is one of these people that hates his color of skin or whatever, hates himself for being white, I guess. One magazine article that was written says that he wrote praises the Black Panther Party for establishing a blueprint for U.S.-based radical organizations experimenting with the scientific, premeditated, and necessarily methodical artistry of social revolution. And the websites that post this radical stuff from these attacks that happened at UC Berkeley, it says some of the posts say this: retaliation arson attack on construction site at University of KKK, California, Berkeley. You know, it's 3 Ks instead of C for California, Berkeley. And then another one says thousands of dollars, firebombed a police car, carried out experimental burning of dry grass hills on interior of campus, torched a building on the campus perimeter, and set fire to a construction site. This was done to further retaliate against UC PD, University of California, Berkeley PD, for attacking students at USC, at the USC, the US University of Southern California, I guess, or whatever, University of California at Southern California, and UCLA, whatever USCS is, and UCLA. Another post claiming credit for a firebombing writes, every single building on the UC Berkeley campus deserves to be incinerated. All right. He lives in a $1.1 million home at his parents' house. He's 34. He has a PhD from Northwestern. That's in Chicago, obviously Evanston. That's an Ivy League type one, right? He has a PhD from Northwestern. He's applying at jobs, wants to be a professor. He's living in his parents' $1.1 million house. Here's my question. What would you do if this was your son? How would you handle this if your 34-year-old son with a doctoral degree is your house is raided by the FBI and he's firebombing places and burning down police cars and burning down buildings on a campus, and he's a radical violent radical leftist, according to authorities, federal authorities and local authorities? What would you think if this was your son? And what would you do if your adult son did this while living with you? Whether you, in this case, he's in a $1.1 million home, or even in your home worth, let's say, $400,000 in North Texas or $500,000. What would you do if your adult son did this while he was living with you? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. If this was my son, I would be embarrassed for what he did with my last name and my reputation. Whether I'm on the air or worked at a grocery store, doesn't matter. I'd be embarrassed and humiliated. Number two, I would say, you're out of my house. I'm not paying for anything. Unless he immediately repented and said, I'm sorry, I have issues. And he immediately turned away from it and said, I'm sorry, I need help, and was willing to get help after I reamed him. I might be willing to say, listen, you can stay here as long as you're getting help. I will pay for your help. I can't pay for your defense, but I can pay for your help. Right? I will pay for, I can help you find a good lawyer, and I will pay for your psychological help that I can, wherever I can afford. Other than that, you're on your own. I'm not defending you. I'm not excusing you. You've embarrassed me. You've humiliated me. But if you won't turn away immediately and say, I'm sorry, I need help, then I'd say you got to get out of my house. I don't have criminals and people that are engaged in terrorism. I don't want you affiliated with my house, my family, or any of us. I hope that you'll change, and if you're ready to change, I'll be happy to take you in and help you as much as I can. But until then, get out of my house. I mean, you can't. This guy's a terrorist. So what would you do if your adult son did this while living with you? And what would you think if this was your son? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. One more question. How do you think this kind of radicalization happens in these adults and young kids and teenage kids and young adults so well off, I should say? How do you think this kind of radicalization happens? Whether it be in kids so well off or kids like you and me from families like your family and my family. How does this kind of radicalization happen in kids so well off? Do you think his parents are actually kind of proud of him, or at least kind of quietly, tacitly supporting this? Do you think his parents are this crazy and radical? Sam Bankman-Fried's parents did a lot of bad stuff with him and covered all that stuff up and knew it. They were playing this game with him. They should have been charged too. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. They're radical law professors from, I think, Stanford or one of those types of campuses in California as well. Coming up next, how many mass shootings have been carried out by transgender people? There was another trans person who shot and killed, according to authorities, multiple people. That's happened yesterday. At least the arrest was yesterday in a state that is pretty surprising. I want to talk about that. And by the way, I have the total amount of transgender terrorists or mass killers, and it's a lot higher than you think. And I can share the quick details of those coming up next on the Chris Crock Show and News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Chris Crock Show, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Okay. Well, a year ago, this headline from Newsweek: many mass shootings have been carried out by transgender people. Or how many? A lot. And this is last year, okay? The Colorado Springs shooter, the Denver shooter, the Aberdeen shooter, and the Nashville shooter. I'll read you the specifics of them, brief descriptions. You have a Turning Point USA columnist who said, one thing's very clear: the modern trans movement is radicalizing activists into terrorists. You also have a very prominent, I guess he was a former British pop star, who I follow him. He detransitioned. and he's now kind of a warrior against it. He says the trans movement is pushing more and more extremism each day. Former British pop star Ollie London. They recruit people, indoctrinate them, and pump them full of propaganda until they become filled with hate and rage. Now, the people that were saying this is wrong, like a lecturer in social work at Columbia University wrote, well, he went back to 2009. This is going back just 5 years at the time to 2018. This guy had to go back 9 more years to get better looking stats. Oh, it's only 1.3% out of all the shooters. No, dude, you're going back 9 more years than they are to try to get these numbers. And by the way, out of these 300 other ones, how many of them are transgender? Do you really think they were saying who's transgender in 2009, 2010? I don't know. I don't think so, though. And here's the other thing. Guess how many people, according to the Williams Institute Research Center, how many people in America are transgender? 0.6%. Basically basically 1/2 of 1%. Okay? Well, we just had another transgender shooter. This is horrifying. It's from Utah. This is a man who calls himself a woman who's 28. He was arrested and charged after being on the run for a day or so out in the desert. After he killed according to cops, he killed his mother, Gail, 69, and father, Joseph, 70, found dead in the nearby home. This man who says he's a woman told cops that I don't have remorse for my actions, and I will not change what I've done. I would do it again. I hate them. He's been charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted aggravated murder, 1 count of aggravated burglary, and 1 count of third-degree felony discharge of a firearm. He told officers that he went to the residence with the intent to kill his parents and was seen entering the home on surveillance camera footage. He admitted to entering the home, shooting her at his mother straight away. Mom was found on the first floor while the dad's body was found in the hallway leading to the master bedroom. I'm wondering if he chased him. His father, Joseph, had been shot twice while Mom was shot 4 times. Upon entering the house, he almost immediately began shooting at his mother. He said his father heard gunshots and began walking toward him. He said he shot his father in the head and then he immediately dropped to the ground. But he went back and he shot him again in the head. Like he went back upstairs and back downstairs to shoot him again in the head to make sure they were dead, which is why there's 2 rounds in his head and 4 rounds in her head and body. He said he returned to the father who was lying on the ground, shot him 1 more time in the head to make sure he was dead. He then walked back over to his mom and shot her in the head to make sure she was dead. You know, when you shoot and kill somebody, I've never think I've seen this, but when you shoot and kill something like that, they ain't moving. The fact that you would go to a dead body and shoot it again is particularly heinous, vile, and evil. He said his brother and his siblings were, a pair of his siblings were attempting to escape through a downstairs window. The brothers were in the other room, or a brother and a sister. No, his brother and his wife were in the other room. He said his brother was not the main target, but he would have not been sad if he shot and killed him too. This is an attempted mass shooting. It's on the precipice of a real mass shooting, but. And then he hid and ran and climbed walls and hid in the bushes for like 24 hours before they finally caught him. So he knew it was wrong. He did it anyways. He was a coward. He threatened to kill himself when they arrested him, but he didn't. Because he's overcome with evil and he's a coward. And he's not a woman. He's a man. He's a terrorist. He's a transgender terrorist. What are the other ones? I'll go over the details on them in a second, but here's my questions for you. Do you think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence? Do you think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence? Or do you think some of our younger people may need compassionate treatment for what really is mental illness instead of folks fawning over them and practically worshiping them because they say I'm a man when they're a woman or vice versa, you know? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. You think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence? Or do you think some of our younger people may need compassionate treatment for mental illness instead of folks fawning over them and blessing their transgender efforts? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I submit to you that a 28-year-old man who says he's a woman, who gleefully kills his parents and says, I would do it again, and gleefully goes back and shoots them again in the head after they're dead. I think the issue is one of his mental illness, and I think he struggles with, this is my pure speculation, but I think he struggles with the fact that he doesn't accept him and love himself, and everything he's pursuing is still not working. And I think the sick and sad and ironic thing of this whole thing is no matter how many times he kills his relatives, no matter who he would kill, he would still not be satiated and happy. Satiated is not the word I'm looking for. He would still not be happy. You have a group of like 4 to 6 transgender people on 60 Minutes with, was it Leslie Stahl or somebody, that stunned a lot of us about a year or two ago, and all of them said they did all the stuff that they were told to do: transgender, take the drugs, do surgeries, follow everything to the T. One man said, I was in college. He said, I took all the drugs. They supported me and everything, he said. And then after I got my sex change, he said, I read every book and I read every page and I did everything they told me, and it still didn't do anything. I still wanted to kill myself. And I think the ultimate thing is this disease for many, it gets you to, when you're radicalized like this, it gets you to do things to your body, and then you find out it didn't do anything, it didn't help you, and then you're being laughed at internally. Look what you did. Look what I made you do. And now you're still miserable. Now what are you going to do? You're going to kill others, kill yourself? That's why adulthood is when this needs to be done, and it's mental illness when you're hurting people. And I think that people that are mentally ill are ripe for radicalization, right? You got that. You got the liberal terrorist who were radicalized at MSNBC that went in and shot up the congressional baseball game and almost killed Steve Scalise. You got another radical leftist MSNBC viewer who went in and tried to kill a bunch of people at. It was a network. I can't remember what it was in D.C. Went in with a gun. It was a conservative group or something like that. A network about 2-3 years ago. Or so, maybe 4 years ago. Went into their lobby and was going to shoot it all up and was stopped. Again, radical leftism. I think these are people that are mentally ill and they're vulnerable. And I think a lot of people, and I learned this from the actually, I'll tell you where I learned all this from, by an expert, by all means, and what the expert says about this. But also, I'm going to give you the details on now a sixth. I gave you the 6th transgender mass shooting, but there were 5 others. So you've had 6 in 6 years. Consider that they're less than one half of 1% of the population. That's a high amount of people being terrorists and shooting and killing people, isn't it? When you consider they're 1/2 of 1% of the population and they're committing approximately 1 mass shooting per year, that's a big deal. All right, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I'll give you the details on the 5 previous ones, and then the 6th one, of course, this Utah one I just told you about. Do you think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence, or do you think some of our younger people may need compassionate treatment for mental illness instead of folks fawning over them? Again, I'll tell you what one expert says that makes perfect sense to me on all this next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. Woo! 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Okay. Well, the transgender mass shooters, transgender terrorists, we have the 6th one out of Utah, arrested for murdering her parents and was willing to also murder her, did shoot. So it was a mass shooting because there were 2 more victims in there. His brother and his wife, and said he he would have no problem if he would have killed his brother and his wife. So it was a mass shooting because that's 3 or more people. Would have been 4, but they locked the door and they jumped out of the back window and ran. That's a terrorist filled with evil and rage and hatred. And I don't believe it was hatred of other people. I think it's hatred of himself. Refusal to accept himself and get help. Now, I don't blame the parents. He's 28 years old. I mean, what are you doing, dude? Go get some help. And Nashville, Tennessee is one. The question is, do you think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence? Or do you think some of our younger people may need compassionate treatment for mental illness instead of folks fawning over them and, adulating them because they're saying, oh, I'm a guy now or I'm a girl now, Okay. Numbers 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Nashville. You remember that transgender terrorist? She literally said she was a he. Remember the manifesto was released and we got that. And now there's the guy that released that they're trying to prosecute him now. It's insane. She was railing against the Christian church, the Christian school that she went to as a kid, and her hatred for Christians and the gospel and the church not blessing her transgenderism. Why would you go kill people and kill something because they don't agree with you? Why wouldn't you just go live your life? You're an adult. No, she had to kill people. She had to kill the very people that she hated. Why did she hate them? Because they wouldn't bless what she was doing. You will be forced to do things, whether it be through violence or just through the Biden Justice Department ruining you, as they're doing to the doctor out of Houston and the nurse out of Houston at Texas Children's Health, I think it's called, or in Houston. Okay. Also, so that's one. In addition to the Houston, Salt Lake City one I just told you about. Here's the other one, Colorado Springs, Colorado, in November of 2022. He went in and shot up an LGBTQ nightclub, and he said he was non-binary, and there were pictures and some other things like that. Denver, Colorado, May 7th of 2019. One student killed, further 8 were injured during a shooting at a STEM school, Highlands Ranch, south of Denver. One of the shooters was 16-year-old Alec McKinney. He was born female, or she was born, it's a she. She was born female, but said, I'm a male now. I'm transitioning at the time of the shooting. Aberdeen, Maryland, September 20th, 2018. 4 people shot and killed at a pharmaceuticals distribution center by a transgender terrorist named Snoshia Mosley, 26-year-old who identified as a female, even though he was a man, suffered from bipolar depression, linked to feelings of rejection when he had first come out as a gay and then later transgender person. The friend said that he had begun receiving hormone therapy a year prior to the incident, planned to undergo gender reassignment surgery, but had been struggling with the transition. So why not kill a bunch of people? Well, that's all the people. So that's your 6th in 6 years. 6 transgender mass shooting in 6 years. There is a problem. Now, what I was getting at in the last segment that I promised to get into this segment is the head of the Gender Dysphoria Center at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, one of the most preeminent, one of the top hospitals in the nation. It's where Dr. Ben Carson used to do separating conjoined twins and brain surgery. Dr. Carson spent an hour with me on the air a couple of years ago before anybody knew him politically, before he ran or any of that stuff. I'm proud to say that we had a great time talking for an hour one night. It was wonderful. But the head of the Johns Hopkins Gender Dysphoria Center, he's not in charge of the center anymore, but he was in charge of the center when he wrote an editorial, or at least he was recently in charge of it when he wrote this editorial. He still is a professor. He's on staff at Johns Hopkins. He still works at gender dysphoria stuff, but he's not in charge of the center anymore. But he was for like 10 or 20 years or something. He wrote a column, a landmark column, before any of this stuff was really huge in the news, but it was still part of the news at the time. Maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, I can't recall. I've read it on the air ad infinitum. He said that the overwhelming, like 90 some odd % of the transgender youth, or who think they're transgender, or identify as non-binary or whatever, somewhere around 90% of them will end up saying after adolescence that they want to just be the way they were born. And what you need to do, he wrote, and I've shared this so many times because this is what every parent needs to know, okay? Because we've had people in our life and we've had people whose children in our friendship circles and friends with my daughter, my son, who have had this kind of stuff. And the way to do it is you love them. And if you don't approve of it, I don't approve of it, my wife and I don't approve of it, but you don't treat the child meanly, rudely, or anything. You just don't play the game. You just lovingly say, well, as you know, I don't agree with that. However, I love you and I will always love you no matter what. I'm always going to be here from you. And if you're struggling with any psychological issues, I will be happy to get you care. But the thing is, you don't tell them this, but for us, any kind of care we get is, for me personally, with my beliefs, is biblically based counseling. Like, there's a lot of licensed licensed practicing LPCs, I think, licensed practicing counselor, and also same values for doctors that prescribe, psychiatrists and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with getting that help. People in my family, including myself, have gotten help on and off over the past 50 years of my life, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in it. But our cares are based on our faith and our values, and yours doesn't have to be. Yours is whatever your values are, but they don't have to be overtly shouting stuff or doing it. They can use the same stuff, the same values that you share, but they can say it in ways that aren't like, well, the Bible says this or that. You just tell them. You don't have to quote it. You just use it in your logic and how you talk to them as a licensed practicing counselor. And that's what I would recommend if you share my values. And if you don't, then do what works with you. 800-288-WBAP is our number. We got to take a quick time out, right? We'll talk to Ken in Arlington coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, plus your call. Do you think there's a problem with younger transgender people being radicalized to do violence? Or do you think some of our younger people may just need compassionate treatment for mental illness instead of folks fawning over them? That's what I think. 800-288-WBAP. And if you're an adult and you want to do this, I could care less. I do what you want. Kids are a different issue. Also, I want to get into coming up next, beach horror as couple drown in rip current in front of their 6 kids on a Florida vacation.